Millennials less satisfied with democracy than at any other time in the past century, Cambridge study finds. I see a bunch of "it's not democracy that's the problem, it's X." Pretty much every one of these is correct. We have a fucking boatload of problems. I graduated high school in 2007 and the entire job market shit the bed as I was entering college. It's pretty much been all downhill at full speed since then. I don't want much. I just want to be able to pay my bills without needing multiple people's 50+ hour weekly incomes to accomplish it. I have no idea how I can afford money down on a house without a parent dying and getting a life insurance payout. I haven't been able to afford health insurance in years, and after an assault that resulted in half of the teeth getting kicked out of my face 4 years ago, I'm in desperate need of a dentist. Even with insurance they won't cover cosmetic dentistry, haha FML. I'm not a greedy man. I have no aspirations of being a millionaire. I just want to make a living wage, afford a home, have proper medical treatment when it is necessary, and be able to retire before I die. Both of those things seem equally impossible to me, and I see nothing on the horizon that addresses a single one of those issues seriously. We're all fucked. As a 35-year-old, I constantly hear 65-year-olds keep saying that we're just not working hard enough. Really? 'Cause renting a shitty apartment while working 60 hours a week as a skilled employee in a job that I've been learning for over a decade, and home ownership just out of reach wouldn't make any individual a little discontented? Laborers could afford homes in the 70s. Correction, millennials are unhappy with plutocracy. Democracy might be great if we could actually have it, yet in 1950, millennials didn't have much of an opinion at all. We got fucked right out of the gate in 2008. We tried to come back from nothing with roadblocks at every corner. Stagnant wages, a very competitive job market, and inflation that is squeezing everyone. And to have whole lot of judgment from the people who made mad money off the housing market. My parents bought their home for $60,000 in 2001. That same house today is worth $290,000, so yes, we do need change to happen. The other day they reported that millennials only have 4.7% of the total wealth of the US, yet make up the majority of the workforce compared to the /50% that the boomer generation holds. Gen X are at a modest /26%. So yes, we are not happy. When everyone tells us to work for it, the only question we have is how? The answer from those people is always vague and without substance of an actual opportunity to change the system for everyone to get the share they deserve. Just judgment. Edit, this comment blew up quick, thanks all for the awards. Democracy. We hate the current stage of capitalism, not democracy. We joined a monopoly game that's already 150 turns in, there's no hope of owning any property, everywhere we go is bloody expensive, and the players who already own everything are telling us we should pull ourselves up by our bootstraps just like they did when they started the game 150 turns ago. Who wouldn't be bitter in that situation? Gestures at everything. I don't think it's democracy that they're weary of, nor do I believe they want to move to a communist state of being. I think it's the inequitable capitalist system. Millennials are more questioning of our current systems as flawed, much like the hippies of the 60s who tried to create smaller societies within established society. Maybe they need to reject all the established methodologies and come up with something unique that is more fair. Why accept a status quo that you don't like if you can build something better? They're just coming into positions of government now, let's see if they do anything different. People aren't dissatisfied with democracy, they are realizing they don't live in democracies. It's not democracy they have a problem with, the shit show in the US and UK they aren't happy with, and on top of that there are decades of corruption pulling the ladder out from younger generations, making it really hard to ascend financially. Millennials are sick of thin democracy where they're promised representatives and a seat at the table, but then get bullshit and lies and empty promises from governments that have given them no helpful policies and a bleak future. We still very much believe in democracy, just give us the real thing that we've been asking for. It's not democracy that's the issue, it's poorly regulated capitalism and corruption. That's because we don't live in real democracies. We aren't dissatisfied with democracy. We are sick of living in an oligarchy. What else can you expect when most systems that claim to be democracies are so severely corrupted and are nothing but shams trying to give the illusion that the average person has any say in what happens? I think the closest to being a true democracy is the Swiss with CIR voting. Not me. I reckon we should try it. Millennials never had democracy. The reversion to oligarchy was well underway when we were born. Thing is, when democracy is applied to the economy, which it pretty much has to be, because no one can opt out of economic life, it's called socialism, and decades of pro-oligarch propaganda has convinced people that it's somehow the antithesis of, rather than a necessary condition for, stable democracy. The conditions that allowed capitalism and democracy to occur together, a. existed for about 40 anomalous years and will never return, and b. didn't even do a great job or cover that many people as any woman, racial minority, or person living in one of the nations, e.g. Chile, Panama, Vietnam, Indonesia, on the business end of our capitalism can attest. Millennials are not dissatisfied with democracy, they're dissatisfied with a political system that calls itself democratic yet serves only the interest of billionaires. It's not a democracy when two parties suppress other parties while taking their base for granted. It's not a democracy with an electoral college. It's not a democracy with lifetime appointments to the Supreme Court. This article is just shit journalism. I mean, we're literally being penalized for living on population-dense areas. To put it in historical terms, our vote isn't worth as much because we don't own land and don't serve people who do. On top of that, many, maybe most, of the representatives we do have are just less awful members of the generation that turned our generation into one of essentially indentured servants and blamed us for it, citing that we don't work hard enough despite working much harder for much less. How can we be dissatisfied with something that we do not have? The main reason behind the disillusion with democracy among young people was inequality of wealth and income, the report said, citing figures showing that millennials make up around a quarter of the U.S. population but hold just 3% of the wealth. Baby boomers held 21% of the wealth at the same age. Yeah, democracy is what they're unhappy about. Sure. Bad title. I don't think that millennials are not satisfied with the tenets of what democracy is supposed to be, just that what we have now is not the same type of democracy that existed for boomers or Gen X. The population alone accounts for part of the difference, more people, more ideas, more controversy, but there is also the way we converse and share ideas these days, which is vastly different than even just 10 years ago. I believe millennials are more unsatisfied with the interpretation and application of what we all understand democracy to be. That is a weird way of spelling capitalism. This is what America gets when they teach people that democracy is unregulated corporate capitalism. It's strange that it becomes democracy in headlines and not representative democracy or necrocracy, plutocracy, oligarchy, symbolic monarchy. Millennials have been born into a system that have been on rails for their entire lives. That isn't democracy. Trying to conflate democracy and capitalism. LMAO, they are tired of capitalism, not democracy.